Ed Worley's on in SoCal. First today, at least on my list, Joe Holtzman in cold Colorado. I'll tell you, it's cold and wintry here in San Francisco,
Was
Joe.
this morning.
Sure was. I'm about to turn the heat on here in the Beach Street Yacht Club, Julia, for the first time since, tell me when, March or April. Ted Ryman in Cape Town in the Republic of South Africa. Thierry de Jong, also in SoCal. Christopher Gillingham. Life doesn't get much better than Sailing Illustrated and England playing rugby on a Friday evening in England. Hoorah! Fair winds from Leamington, Chris, and Jane.
How nice.
Peter Taylor in New York City. Gordon Smith did a great job for us in Tuesday's show with that video and challenge to the Fosey. He's in Denmark as usual. Chris Exley in Salem, Massachusetts. Jody Shields. Here we go. Saturday morning edition in Sydney, north of Sydney, of Sailing Illustrated. Too early, he says, for a beer. Warren Chaucer in Brisbane. Pedro Foiling Sailor is in Tasmania.
And Hobart. Oh.
Not in his usual Sydney, as we get this one across the starting line. Live from San Francisco, as usual, the Beach Street Yacht Club in Studio B. It's the Friday, 27th of October, 2023, for our show number 658. I'm your host, Tom Eamon, and I trust, Julia, that you are well. My co-host, the Commodore of the Beach Street Yacht Club, my landlady, coordinating producer. You have a lot of titles.
I do. It depends on what day it is.
A couple minutes after 1 here in San Francisco, wherever in the world you are watching live or in replay, welcome to this show. Thanks for joining us. Big show, lots on today, as you probably saw in the show notes there at the top of the show. But to begin, we want to say today's show, as usual, is being sponsored by you, the viewers, especially our FOSI, our friends of Sailing Illustrated, who have joined us as patrons via patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated, and give us $1 or $2 or $5 or $10 or more per month to help keep us on the air. And we are greatly appreciative of your support. As we are of Gordon Smith's segment, we want to thank him for his segment on Tuesday, the videos, the challenge about the Sydney Opera House. Remember that?
Yes.
And 50 years ago on Tuesday.
It seems impossible.
It was opened. The iconic Sydney Opera House, and he challenged the Fosey to which fruit was the architect, the Danish architect, who won the contest. I mean, there was multiple people making bids, and the Danish architect, right?
Yes.
And what was that fruit?
Orange.
An orange. And we went through all that, and Gordon challenged us to that. Who was the first one to get it? David James from across the bay in Sausalito, just north of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Right.
But he kindly donated the shirt, then passed it on, paid it forward to Julie Ahrens in Cleveland, who really wanted it, right?
I know.
She wanted it badly. So they're both going to make contributions to a charity of their choice in the name of Alistair Murray and Gordon Smith and Sailing Illustrated, and we appreciate that, all of you, very much indeed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Julie, we did this segment on Tuesday about the Croutonic Championship of Champions. It's a great event. The event itself is not Croutonic, but Croutonic U.S. Sailing, for running it in radio-controlled model yachts, boats, at a terrific club in Texas, the Corinthian Sailing Club of Dallas, a great club.
Yes.
But it was, and I asked you, I put it to you, was it a good idea or not? This is a championship that was supposed to be a test of the current national and North American champions from this year of major one design, well, not major, one design classes, and keelboat, small keelboat one design classes in this country, dinghies and keelboats. And almost to a person, you thought it was Croutonic. And this is nothing against radio-controlled boats.
No, I mean, it got a lot more comment than I expected.
It's and the reason I'm putting this back in is because not only did it get a lot more comment, you're quite right on the show, but it also got a lot more comments since. And, you know, usually we run something like this and we'll get some pushback. And I got a couple emails or notes or DMs from people saying, you're too hard on the model yachting crowd. And I said, absolutely not. We have nothing at all against the model yachts. Let's all go do it. Let's have a model yacht championship of champions and take the champions from all the different model yacht classes and put them in a championship. We'll call it the Julia Vedekint Trophy or something. We'll donate a Sailing Illustrated trophy for that. That's not the point. The point is, why is U.S. Sailing, which is now completely staff-driven, and thank you, Betsy Allison, for coming on, why is it staff-driven, and they ignore what the sailors in the, in the field want, in the grassroots? Because I'll tell you, the founder of this, or the donor of the trophy, he wasn't the founder of the regatta, Jack Brown, the late, great Jack Brown from South Carolina. I swear to God, he'd be rolling over in his grave.
It is the experience of those involved that make it worthwhile.
Well, and again, it's for people who sit their butts on boats. And there are lots of different cool disciplines. But I the point of, not to rant on about this any more than we already did the other day, but to say that I got a lot of notes in favor of our position on this, that it was Croutonic.
Yes.
Usually you get some pushback notes. You don't usually get people say, oh, yeah, we agree with you. But man, did I get a lot of notes, or a number of notes.
Well, it reflects our audience.
Well, it does that too. You're right, it does. But still, what are the comments? Are there any more coming in here? Graham Sweeney, there's a building in Convy Island in the Thames estuary designed. We're back on the architect of the Sydney Opera House by the Danish architect. Clark Chapin, maybe this will bring forward more clubs and classes to host the event in conventional sailboats. Yes, I get that, Clark. And Betsy Allison, the director of adult sailing at U.S. Sailing, who was on here, she, I'm just reading comments from Andy Green.
Yeah.
And she said, we only had 12 entries or 12 entries because we didn't have any other big invitations from clubs and classes. Well, part of the problem with that is that U.S. Sailing is no longer run by volunteer committees who can go out to clubs and say, hey, let's do this. This will be a lot of fun. We did the Flying Scots, I think twice, the Championship of Champions at the same club in Texas, Corinthian Sailing Club. And I sailed in it last time. It was in Scots, Flying Scots there, because I was invited as the mystery guest. But as Andy Green is saying, he was one of the people I heard from after the show, and he said, you can count me as a dissenter. And he's saying it was Croutonic, so ridiculous. He apparently was invited to it. Andy, a hell of a good sailor, lives in Newport, Rhode Island, originally from the UK, former America's Cup sailor and more. And he said it was the stupidest decision ever. Bill Canfield is on here, president, is he former president? Or Bill, are you still the president of the Virgin Islands Sailing Association, Visa? That event and their Olympic event, bad week for U.S. Sailing. Yes. Stingray, it's always been my suspicion that Jody Shields is remote control. The first clever comment of the day.
I think the mistake is assuming that he's controlled it all.
Yeah, and see, Andy Green is making the point. He had won the Shields Nationals, which is a bit of a deal, especially in the Northeast. And there's some Shields in Texas and one or two other, but in Newport, Rhode Island, and Marblehead, and I'm not sure where else. And he'd won the National. He was so excited and honored to be asked to go to the Championship of Champions, but not go sail RC, model yachts. And in any event, that was the feedback I got after the show, which I thought was unusual. Baton Rouge in Charleston is saying, I think, Baton Kennan's his real name, I think a lot of crews got screwed out of sailing that event, the C of C. Yeah. Those drivers, while multiple event winners may have new teams, and that would have been the first time they sailed that event. Exactly. Okay, enough of all that, and that's why I bring it up again. And we appreciate feedback, and
Absolutely.
We do, Julia, we do read feedback.
We do.
Before, during, and after the show. So we appreciate
that's part of that, and so should everybody else. That's one of the great advantages of this.
Well, and that's why we like to go live, first of all, and we're the only live show in the sport, as far as I know, for live regular show.
Yeah, right.
And it's the feedback from the FOSI, the Friends of Sailing Illustrated, that we do.
And information.
And the smart people.
Oh, yes.
Good. Okay. U.S. Sailing. One note. I got a note from, I won't say from whom, but a high up U.S. sailing person just before we went there, literally 20 minutes, 15 minutes before we went there. Remember, U.S. Sailing had that ridiculous sponsorship with an Avante, it was called Avante Private Jet Charter Company.
Yeah.
And that when they announced the championship, people were sending stuff into me, or championship, the partnership with this sponsor. You know, you can be a U.S. Sailing, you're going to get a discount on private planes, private jet charters, excuse me. But that firm, this Avante firm, was being sued left, right, and center. And they're not, I won't go into it. I didn't even run it, I don't think, or maybe I mentioned it. But they've just today, U.S. Sailing announced that we have mutually agreed to part ways with the offending partner. I mean, it's just, the U.S. Sailing it's one thing after another, and not to be critical of the people on the staff or even the leadership, because it's the structure that's wrong, and it's people who used to run the place that put the structure and put the organization into the dire straits that it's now in. Because when it was volunteer driven, when it was broad based, and you had clubs and classes and people from all across the country, cool people like Clark Chapin, who's on here, and many others of you who ran the organization from the ground up, from the grassroots up, would go to the meetings, make decisions, leave it then to the staff to follow up and execute. Now it's the other way around. There's a central core staff like the federal government in Washington, Julia.
Yes.
And like the EU in Brussels that run everything from the top down, and it's a disaster.
Yeah.
It is a disaster. So, and if I were not 70 and, 70, I'd go back in and try to sort out U.S. Sailing, because it needs sorting out, and go back to it was a terrific, well-respected, highly organized, highly respected organization back when it was NARU, USYRU, and even the early days of U.S. Sailing. Okay, enough of that. Sad news from the east coast of Mexico, that Hurricane Otis.
Yeah.
That's the scene in Acapulco, which was the scene, the venue for the '68 Olympic. When the Olympic Games were in Mexico City, the sailing was in Acapulco. And the east coast of, as you know, Mexico has gotten a little dodgy lately because of some of the criminal elements and the cartels and the drugs and so on. Seems like the west coast, or down in the Baja Peninsula, is a little safer, and a little, Cabo San Lucas.
Yeah.
Your favorite place, PV,
Yeah.
Puerto Vallarta, but poor old Acapulco is still a sailing and boating center, particularly for Mexicans, and college kids go down there for spring break, no less. But they really got hit by a bit of a surprise hurricane. Not that the hurricane was a surprise, but it was a surprise that it ramped up so quickly to as much as a Cat 4 or maybe even Cat 5.
Yeah.
So they've really been devastated down there. And any of us, I know they're going to run the Far 40 Worlds down there, I think this coming spring, 2024. And I'm not so sure that's going to happen now, given the situation in Acapulco after Hurricane Otis. So sorry about that. And any of you who do have boats or do frequent Acapulco, we're sad to hear that. Needless to say. Matt Suzuki, thank you for sending that photo along. I had seen similar photos.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that photo.
But that was pretty awful, wasn't it, Julia? Julia?
Sir.
What in the world are we celebrating today? There's a bit of a hint.
It looks like bubbly.
It is. This is Global Champagne Day.
Oh,
and there is such a thing. We could have had a little toast here on the,
Absolutely.
But we don't drink on the, last time we drank on this show, we were more crotonic than ever.
Yeah, champagne. It went down too easy.
Well, was it champagne or was it something else? I think it was Irish whiskey and.
Oh yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, we did that too, I think.
Oh, man. We did champagne on New Year's Eve, and that wasn't so bad. We put a tuxedo on, you put a fancy dress on.
Right.
It is nonetheless Global Champagne Day, and to all of you who love champagne, as do we here at the Beach Street Yacht Club from time to time, we celebrate Global Champagne Day on the fourth Friday of October with a toast to this beloved bubbly beverage. Champagne has been around since the 15th century and is made from grapes that come from the Champagne region of France, as you all know. It has become a symbol of celebration and luxury enjoyed by people all over the world. Whether you're celebrating a special occasion or just want to enjoy some bubbles, make sure to pop open that bottle of champagne and raise your glasses in honor of Global Champagne Day. Julie, we're going to have a little champagne tomorrow night
Yes.
at the YC.
Yes.
For some birthday celebrations
Yes,
that we're
indeed.
going to have. We're going to open with champagne, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the show, we're going to have a little bit of a lesson on how or how not to open a champagne bottle with a sword.
Saber, yeah.
With a saber. Did you see that in the show notes?
No.
Maybe I said sword. We've got a video, so stay tuned. Stay with us to the end of the show. In the last leg, we're going to show you a video. In the meantime, happy Global Champagne Day. Jody, it's Saturday morning down there in Oz. Why don't you crack open a bottle of champagne instead of beer and enjoy that on your Saturday morning down there.
Right.
Those of you in Europe on Friday evening, likewise, happy Global Champagne Day. Some show notes for next week. I'm pleased to say that we will on Tuesday have live via Skype from Newport, Rhode Island, the newly installed executive director of the Sailing Museum, which is also the National Sailing Hall of Fame in Newport, Rhode Island. There on Lower Thames Street in the old Armory building. Ashley Householder will be with us. She will also be in Newport Beach, California next weekend because we will be celebrating the National Sailing Hall of Fame inductions. And on the occasion of that, I'm going down to live stream that for the NSHOF. And the induction is actually on Saturday morning. Friday afternoon, my guests next Friday. I wasn't going to do a show, but I knew I'd be criticized. So we're going to do a show, and none other than Gary Jobson and Andy Rose have agreed to come on live, and we're going to talk. They're both directors. Gary's the co-president, again, of the National Sailing Hall of Fame. Going to preview who the inductees are on Saturday morning. Some cool people. Names that any of you in the world will have likely, if not no doubt, heard of. We're also going to ask Gary and Andy to revisit the 1977 America's Cup final when they were opposing tacticians. Gary Jobson with Ted Turner on Courageous and Andy Rose on Australia 1 with Noel Robbins. And I don't know if anyone's ever had them on the same stage together talking about that series.
Yeah.
And they're, of course, both great personalities. They will be our guests next Friday when I do a remote show down in Newport Beach at the Balboa Yacht Club. And we'll also have the co-chairs of that event down there, Dion Ficker McDonald. Dion's the daughter of the late, great Bill Ficker. She's co-chairing it with the famously good chair, Christine Robertson, who chairs all the Gov Cups for us. And the two of them are co-chairs for the festivities next weekend in Newport Beach. So it should be a great show with Andy and Gary. We're looking forward to that. We'll also, no doubt, get them to talk a bit about their views of the current America's Cup and the state of the sport. Gary, of course, past president of U.S. Sailing, former vice president for 8 years of World Sailing, Andy, the Gov Cup guru, and more and more. And Julie Aarons is saying, yes, you would have been in deep trouble if you canceled another show. Chris Fury is saying 7:15, and we're already into the champagne for my son's wedding day here in Melbourne. Well, congratulations first, Chris.
Yes. On
your Saturday wedding down there. We love Melbourne, as you all know. Marcos Feinstein was at the St. Francis Yacht Club Stackers. Marcos from down in SoCal, and he said he sabered a bottle at the Stackers. I hope more successfully than the video we're going to show you at the end of the show. Yeah, and Julie Aarons just back on the Sea of C. She's saying, hi, everyone. I think that RC boats are fun, but this Sea of C needed to be sailed in real sailboats. U.S. Sailing really needs an overhaul. They are not fulfilling their original role. The Olympic program is suffering. Well, it's shambles. And other of their programs have not lived up. Exactly. It's just kind of from one thing to another. And again, there are a lot of people, bless their hearts, who are busting their picks, both as volunteers and more, and paid hands on the staff. But it needs an overhaul. It needs new leadership. It needs to go back to the days of when, Julia, you ran, what was the National Center
for Voluntary Action
in Washington, D.C., and you supported nonprofits and supported groups like this and helped teach the leadership how to do their jobs. Maybe we should send you to Bristol, Rhode Island. You go explain these people. Explain them, as Ding Schoonmaker, our late great.
Yeah.
Speaking of late great one design champions and leaders of our sport in this country, James Schoonmaker. Another one design champion and leader in our sport, and Super Fozy John Emmett is weighing in, as always, from Weymouth, although he's on the road again. He's driving somewhere. I'm not sure he's going to get on the show today, but our Super Fozy John Emmett with his report from the Weymouth and Portland National Sailing Academy. I thought I'd put it on the map. Let me back that title off. That you can see is in kind of not quite the central coast, still in the southeast of England, Bournemouth and Poole, of course, and around the corner, Two Cows, the Isle of Wight. And up here, of course, is Southampton. And this cool sailing center over here. And of course, it's not a huge country. It's what, the size of, what's England, the size of Texas? Is it even that big?
I don't know.
But they can all go down there and sail at that National Sailing Academy. And man, is it a great facility.
It is a great facility.
And witness some of these photos. Look at this.
Mm-hmm.
There is a fleet of Ilkas and what are those toppers down in the bottom? And what, some kind of catamaran up at the top, probably Nacra 17s or something. But look at the size of just the hard stand of that facility, then the buildings alongside it, which is by way of a yacht club and educational facilities. And you wonder why the Brits turn out year after year, Olympics after Olympics, and even dominate in various other venues and disciplines in our sport. But it's in part thanks to the Weymouth and Portland National Sailing Academy, the funding they get from their government via the National Lottery, and on and on. And the Aussies don't have a national sailing academy that I'm aware of. The Kiwis don't either. Their countries are pretty well situated around, one or two or three cities where they can tow boats or have boats and train, and on and on. So bravo Zulu to them. Bravo Zulu to this facility. I mean, look at this. The kid's sitting out on the hard stand. I don't think that's Emmett. At first, I thought that was John, but I think it's another coach or leader.
Yep.
In the sport, and a great facility, and that's where.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, it is. I'm just the more I see it, the more.
So I thought I'd throw some pictures in because we talk about it all the time, but I'm not sure people are aware of how really cool that facility is. They even, like a yacht club, Julia, they host weddings there. It's open for private parties and so on. It raises a few bucks, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Nice view out on the bay. Let's see John's report from there today.
Hi Tom, Julia and all the Fozy. I'm back here at the Weymouth and Portland National Sailing Academy, and today's coaching topic is about specialisation. And I think it's important that when we go to have a surgery, an operation, that we have a specialist doing it. So if you have to have surgery on your shoulder, you want somebody who's operated on thousands and thousands and thousands of shoulders, because it's by doing something repeatedly you get a lot better. You don't want somebody who does all types of medicine and they've only done a shoulder operation once or twice. And it's almost counterintuitive. There's a good experiment which was done with pottery, which is a manufacturing task, where one group was tasked to build the perfect pot, and another group was tasked to build as many pots as they can. And you know what? The perfect pot was actually significantly worse than the pots produced by the group which had to produce lots and lots and lots and lots of pots, because you know what? Every time they did a pot, they learned something and they got better and better and better. So if you're going to go for surgery, you want to have a specialist. I mean, sometimes people have two specialists, they'd be knee and shoulder or whatever, but I think for a lot of people, just having that specialist is really important. And you know, it's a no-brainer. So when we look at coaching, or indeed sailing, it's really important that we have that level of expertise, which is why, unsurprisingly, I spend all my time with the ILCA class. It's not with other classes that I dislike them or enjoy them less. In fact, I really enjoy watching the foilers, as I've said many times. But it's just by specialising, I think I can bring as much as possible to the table. sailing is a dynamic sport, and you'll see some of the top racers will be involved in several classes. But what you need to think about is adding value. So does sailing your moth help you with your sail GP? Does your sail GP help you with your AC? Does your winging help you with your 49er sailing? And there's two things there. There's the technical aspect, the learning aspect, just, you know, the very general stuff of going racing, if you go and do big boat campaigns and working with others, but also that sort of avoiding the boredom. But the way you learn is by spending lots and lots of time doing something, and that's how you get good at it. And the people who can operate, and that's coaches and sailors, like as close as possible to burnout, they're the people who are going to have the best performance overall. So you need to think about this added value. So a good example, I would say, perhaps one of the best, is cycling, apart from the time and fatigue side of it, will add to nearly any aspect of sailing, because fitness is very important. Sailing is a sport. Weight training, again, being fit will add something to your sailing. Now, the devil is always in the detail, whether you're doing very lightweight lots of times, whether you're doing very long, low intensity cycles, or whether you're practicing sprinting, heavy weights, powerlifting, Olympic lifting. But it's about adding value as either a coach or a sailor. But this idea of specialisation is very important. It may take people some time to get there. I was looking at the kite service recently, and it feels like the Ilka 6, or what it was then, the laser radial U squad from about 5 years ago. They're a lot bigger now. But I'd say most of the top guys are over 90 kilos. And the reason for that is actually when you're foiling, there's no advantage with being heavy in the light winds. I do apologise, they're rebuilding the the steps in the background. I swear they wait for me to come and do this to camera, but there you go. But that specialisation, all those skills you learnt, the base skills from your optimist or your topper or your cadet, or the level above that, your 420, your 29er, your Ilkas 4 or 6, that all carries through. But this specialisation and knowing what you really want, that's very important. So I'm going to leave you with that thought, and you know, a brief apology that obviously you will have a lot more Ilka coverage for my good self than anything else, but that's because it's what I spend most of my time doing. I'll try and join you on the show, but I think I may well be driving. So have a good one.
That is, of course, John Emmett's report. John Emmett, sailing get to the front of the fleet. And we, as we always like to say, we so appreciate his contributions.
Absolutely.
Every show.
I know. Incredible.
Every show. I don't think he's missed one in memory in years.
Mm-mm.
In fact, he's contributed reports when I've been off getting Meg married.
Yes.
Do you see that comment from Stingray?
Yeah.
Up in Seattle? He said, Friday was a terrible choice. Is Meg still married? I hope she is. But next time, Stingray, that she gets married, I'll be sure it's not on a Friday. Julia, you can't get married on a Tuesday or a Friday if you get remarried.
I know. I don't have to be in the show. I'm sorry.
We're kind of matching. I didn't realize that we were going to be in the same. What colors do you call these? Mauve or?
Well, great minds.
I don't know. Transat, you might say in English, Transat Jacques Vabre, the 16th edition, is the main topic of our show today. But before we get to that, we got a Bravo Zulu for the wrap-up. The winners, we told you on Tuesday who the winners of the Rolex Middle Sea Race were, and the first, at least the line honors winners. But now we want to tell you who actually won that very cool race that starts and ends in Valletta in Malta. They had a lot of boats again this year, and it started on the 21st of October, last Sunday. Is that Sunday? Yeah, it was last Sunday. No, last Saturday, I guess it was. And they go out and around Sicily, up and around Sicily, between Sicily and Italia, and around Stromboli and back and out to the west and around and down, 606 nautical miles back to Malta. In most of these, big classic offshore races like the Fastnet, like the Bermuda race, like the Sydney Hobart, are about 600 miles, give or take. Mm-hmm. And that's the cool length. And this is a race now that's been going on for decades and is very popular and increasingly so. Won this year overall by Bullet, an Italian boat. And they it was close. It wasn't clear that they were going to win until a good bit of the fleet had finished, because this is uncorrected time, of course, handicap. And overall in IRC 1 was Andrea Recordati's Wally 93. Fabulous boat. See some other pictures of it, called Bullet. And here is the Rolex video that details all of that win.
I think the crew did a fantastic job keeping everything together, and thanks a lot for Andrea to put this group together, and in the end we are very satisfied with our result.
Obviously, the Rolex Middle Sea race is one of the races, in the world. It's exciting. The scenery is unmatchable, honestly. And when it comes to offshore racing, we get all sorts of conditions. In the Med, it is the offshore race, as far as I'm concerned.
In the Med, it is the offshore race. I think that's a fair statement.
Indeed.
Bullet's 20-member crew was a who's who from the America's Cup, Round the World Racing, and the Maxi Yacht scene. I'm not going to read all their names, but you can see them there. Fantastic group of sailors. Richard Bouzade, Chris Bouzade's son, was on the boat. Matthew Joubert and a bunch of other well-known sailors, big boats and small, on Bullet. Bravo Zulu, congratulations. Now to IRC 2, this team has had a fabulous year. That's Max Klinks. He's from Switzerland. We've talked about him all year. His Botine 52 Caro, and remember, they won the Fastnet race this year. And Mr. Dr. Andrew McIrvin talks very highly of them, how well they sail that boat. They finished 18th overall against it was more of a big boat regatta. The boats in IRC 1, Class 1, did better overall. But these guys won their class and apparently sailed brilliantly. And here's a video about them.
It was one tack. That whole, how many hours we finished behind them was one tack. And they played it great. We went chasing for a little pressure one way, and they tacked. We kind of went, oh, interesting. Interesting was good, apparently.
Up until the last few hours, it was definitely neck and neck.
And that's why we come to these premier marquee events like the Rolex Middle Sea Race to encounter the best of the competition that there is in the whole world on one of the most challenging courses in the world.
A competitor that we really respect, basically just wouldn't let go. It just seemed like every time anything came along, every time we went through a phase or a transition, there was Warrior One ready. It's just exhausting. Look, at the end of the day, yeah, I'll absolutely love it.
The more difficult, the better. That's what we look for. The more difficult the competition and the more difficult the sailing.
This is one of those races that you're never out of it. You always have opportunities, and there were going to be opportunities aplenty. I asked the bowman at one point, how many sail changes? He's like, I gave up counting.
I'm from Australia. I've come from the other side of the world to be here to do that and nothing else. And we achieved it.
Hopefully our division was still strong, and we had a great race, mate. It's always fun to come to Malta and do the Rolex Middle Sea race.
It was the most extraordinary 3 days of yachting.
The most extraordinary 3 days. Nice stuff.
Really nice. I'm listening to the music. That music all the way through was perfect for the film.
Well, Rolex just does a fabulous job. This Rolex Middle Sea Race is one of the best events in our beloved sport.
Yes.
and we're happy to celebrate it with you. There's Caro, the Botine 52 on top of IRC Class 2, and the others in the top 5. Warrior 1 was Chris Sheehan's boat, was the featured yacht there against them, and they, it was not quite. That's a TP52, that's a Udall Frolic TP52, and they didn't quite match race around, but almost. And you heard the tactician on that boat say, "Yeah, we took one bad tack and they won." Carl won. So
I know.
Good stuff, beautiful stuff. This is a picture from the start, and the boat in the middle. First of all, the boat on the right is Bullet, is the boat that won. Uncorrected time, won overall. But in the middle is the boat renames, the newly named Lucky. It was Rambler 88, George David's boat. And I don't honestly know. I texted, and I don't see if I got a text back from him. I texted Andrew McIrvin before the show and said, is that still George David, the famously good owner, New York Yacht Club member, who's had the Ramblers, Rambler 100, Rambler 88. Is that still his boat just renamed Lucky? Or is it somebody else, or is there a co-owner? And I don't know the answer. One of you will probably know. MacGruber or somebody on here will probably know the answer to that. I don't see to have a text back from Andrew. He could even be in the air, flying back to England. But they were not so lucky in renaming the boat, whoever it is, because as we talked about on Tuesday's show, they dropped their rig, broke their rig. And this is after they refueled and motored their way back, and then they got back to the dock. And this photo is courtesy of A. Fozy. I appreciate very much you sending this to us so that we could show you what really happened at the dock. This from the PR, from the Rolex PR, and it says, however, and they talk about a number of boats that dropped out, one that was disqualified, but there were 90, I think, give or take 90 boats, and almost all of them, all but 6 finished. However, by far the worst incident was the dismasting of Lucky, a boat which knows the course very well, having previously been George David's serial line honors winner, Rambler 88. At 0700 this past Monday, while having just passed the Agatti Islands off West Sicily, Lucky's mast broke a few meters above her spreaders, as you can see in these photos. As tactician Brad Butterworth put it, we were under J2, putting a reef in the main in only 19 knots, true wind speed, when bang, fortunately no one was hurt. That's the end of the quote. Fortunately, no one was hurt, and having jettisoned the mess, Lucky pulled into Sicily to pick up fuel and then motored back to Malta. The reasons for the breakage of this 5-year-old carbon fiber spar are at present unclear. Let me go to the comments and see if anybody knows the answers. Clark Chapin saying there at the bottom, well, they can still reuse the lower spreaders on the new rig. Well, I'm not so sure about that. Hi, probably the Aussie Lucky tram that ran aground a decade ago. I don't know about that, Matt. Forgot the virgin sacrifice on the rename. James Frederick Plant. Yeah, got to sacrifice a virgin and pour the blood of a virgin on the bow when you.
Yeah.
Renaming boats is not a good idea, apparently. I thought that renaming a boat was unlucky, Clark Chapin. Yeah, okay. Whatever the kangaroos are. So do they get many refugee? Okay, they're talking about refugee boats. So I don't know the answer to that, whether that's still, but it sounds like it's somebody else's boat now, not George David's boat. But I'm not 100% sure, and we'll find out in due course from one of you or from Andrew McIrvin, who no doubt knows the answer. Now, just to wrap up, I want to do a Bravo Zulu to the Royal Malta Yacht Club. We have been in the past critical of them for their shenanigans with doing an America's Cup challenge. Remember that, Julia?
Yep.
When they challenged, and then it never came to fruition, and there was not much chance of it coming to fruition.
Well,
But the Royal Malta Yacht Club history dates back to the early 1830s, making it one of the oldest clubs in the Med. Indeed, not quite as old as the Royal Cork and a couple of the Brit clubs, but it's older than most of the clubs in the U.S., if not all the clubs. Initially established around 1835 as the Malta Yacht Club by a group of British naval officers stationed in Malta, the club was granted a royal charter by none other than Queen Victoria, becoming the Royal Malta Yacht Club. This marked an important milestone in the club's history and solidified its rep as a prominent institution.
Yep, and that's nice to know. I didn't know that.
I didn't either. You never know what you're going to learn for better or worse on our show.
I know.
Bravo Zulu to all the winners, to Rolex, to the Royal Malta Yacht Club, and people like Andrew McIrvin who make all these things happen and happen so well. What happened, Julia, on this day in history, 27th of October, 2022?
I just saw that too.
1 year ago today.
Mm-hmm.
You want a clue?
Yep.
There's your clue.
Oh.
There's your clue. You know who that is?
Elon Musk.
And on 27th of October, 2022, he walked into a building here in San Francisco with a sink. And he said, let that sink in. Because what had just happened? Yeah, James Bland's got it. J. Frederick Boomer has got it. He bought Twitter. You are so right. Gordon Smith's got it. X Twitter went to hell. Claire Chapin is saying. Musk bought Twitter. Chris Exley. Okay, everybody's got that. And that's what happened. The dapper, at times, Elon Musk from Ted Ryman's home country, well, his adopted country, Republic of South Africa. I guess Elon was born there, Mr. Musk. I haven't met him. Like to meet him. Let's invite him to dinner at the St. Francis Yacht Club some night, Julia.
Let's do that.
He only runs, 3 or 4 companies and works 24/7, it sounds like.
Yes.
But on this day in 2022, Elon Musk takes ownership of Twitter and immediately fired 4 executives and half the company for that matter. This day in history. Already 1 year ago today. Huh?
Yeah.
Isn't that, I find that, as usual, hard to believe as we talk about that. Let's go back to the comments because we have missed a bunch of interesting comments from earlier on about the previous topics. Taupe, J. Frederick Bland is saying that we look like we're in taupe.
Yes.
Your dress looks taupe. My jacket looks, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I haven't worn this since the spring. I thought it was cold today, and it is cold. Not here so much in the studio. Can we get John to start sporting fashionable scarves? If you're watching, Emmett, you got to keep up with Julia.
Oh, never mind.
You got to keep up with Julia. Are those Groover's asking John, are those drool stains on your jacket? What kind of a comment is that? Question is that? Stingray is saying specialism in pot is a big part of sailing and GP specialization in pot. Graham Sweeney is saying pot has improved since the 60s, I have been told. Gordon Smith talking about the food at the Weymouth and Portland National Sailing Academy and how good it is there, and among other things. So core skills and build specialization on top of that. Did I get that right? Gordon Smith is saying. Yeah. Jay Rendell there is that still on this big screen? Jay said that up in Minnesota, he's saying 2 specialists are better than 1. I had 2 heart surgeons patch the large hole between my ventricles in his heart, obviously. Last January, they had only done that a few times before. I remember I was in New Zealand during the something cup, and 2003, I think, and I've just spent my adult life bouncing around in rubber boats, and your head bounces, and it's a lot of strain on your neck, and gradually, as is true for a lot of us, the discs in your cervical spine start to compress and start to push on the nerves going down your arm. And my left arm went completely numb one day. I'm out on the water. We're doing, I don't know if we're racing or I'm rules advising for, I think it was Ellison Syndicate. Oh, it hurt. It hurt and the arm went numb. And so they said, well, go over to we're in Auckland. We're in New Zealand. They said, go over to the hospital, go over. And thinking, it'll be weeks before I get an MRI, before you get a scan. Well, no problem. You go right in right away. Cost nothing. They did the scan, came out of there. The orthopod or the neurosurgeon looked at it. Radiologist looked at it. So, oh, yeah, you got seriously compressed disc. We can operate on that right away. Right here and now, well, maybe tomorrow morning, but go home and come back, don't eat anything, and we'll operate tomorrow morning. I said, well, how many of these have you done?
Yes. And he said,
one.
I was going to say none.
Yeah, we've done one. I said, I think I'll go back to, I think I was living in Germany then. I'll go back to Germany and see how many they've done there. In the meantime, it's gotten better,
Yeah.
A lot of times it does. Okay, so much for my comment about specialization. What other comments do we have here, Julia? TFE needs an ass. Thanks a lot, Marcus. Oh, I don't wear ascots. Last time I looked into Twitter, everything was about Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. Yeah, I do have a Mays shirt on, Joe Holtzman. Joe from Michigan, appreciate that I have a yellow shirt, but that's only because I thought it went with his jacket, not because I'm pimping for the University of Michigan, who have the weekend off, by the way. They've got a bye week. We'll see how. Michigan has been accused, as Julie Ahrens no doubt knows, they've been accused of stealing signs.
Yes.
Of sending people around to look at the signs of other schools. And when they send the plays out from the sideline, they use different literally signboards and sometimes hand signals and stuff you see. Now, the NFL, the National Football League, for years has, they got a little earbud in the ear of the quarterback, and the guys talk to him from the press box, the offensive coordinator or the head coach along the sidelines, and they talk to them and say, hey, run play, C15 or whatever the hell it is. Not in college football. They still have to do all this stuff. Well, Michigan has been stealing, I think, by their own admission, had been stealing, because it's not illegal. Stealing signs is not illegal. There's no rule against stealing signs.
How about stealing signs?
No, not even using them. Apparently, they must have a good rules advisor like I was during America's Cup. Oh, it's not illegal. What's illegal is going into the stadium of an opposing team in advance, anytime, and scouting that team. And if you send somebody into the stadium to steal their signs, you're technically scouting the team. But if you go into the stadium,
how else are you going to get this?
You could do it on TV, or you could. Who knows? But you can't scout the other team. So that's the rule. Apparently, they have alleged to have broken. I know it's cutting with a fine.
Yeah.
NZL takes good care of tour. They do. Jay Frederick, Boomer Blaine, you're absolutely right. I was very impressed with the prompt and free treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously, thank you, Marcos, about the stag cruise. Yeah, that's the last time I'm going to herd the cats. But Stingray, the UW, University of Washington, stealing signs from the pitcher of the opposing team, the Astros. Yeah, well, that's illegal, right? Baseball? Okay, why do we get off on stealing signs?
Well, because it was introduced as a topic.
Okay, let's get on to the main segment of our show today, which is celebrating the start on Sunday of the Transat Jacques Vabre. That's the scene, and here's the official video. Starting Sunday up in Normandy from Le Havre, and they go up to a buoy up to the northeast. I didn't know this. 4 classes, the big L teams, the Amokas, the 50s and the 40s. And then they have different turning marks down the South Atlantic so that they all finish in Martinique, theoretically, at about the same time in November, in Fort-de-France. And they should, in theory, get there about the same time in a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks' time. Cool race. This has been going on for 30 years. This is the 16th edition of the Transat Jacques Vabre. They call it the coffee race when they translate from French into English, which is fine. James Bland is saying, yeah, an offset, Mark. I don't think so. I think it's just to get them up the coast a little bit and give the people on the coast something to see and to watch, a little sponsor visibility, and a warm-up, I think, for the teams to be sure that, there's 90, again, another race with something like 90 boats in it, and be sure that if they've got problems, they're not out in the middle of the ocean before they figure out that they've got a problem. Now, we went this today, again, to this very good I didn't put their, I should have put it up in the upper right corner, but that is from Tip and Shaft, that great newsletter that comes out on Fridays from France mostly about offshore racing. 5 old teams, and we're talking about the big boats now, the big tries. 5 old teams will compete on the 7,500-mile course between Le Havre and Fort-de-France in Martinique. The match promises to be close as the gaps between the Maxi Edmond de Rothschild, until now the reference boat, and it was the winner of the Jacques Vabre in 2021, and of course the Route de Rome in 2022. The gap between that boat and its competitors seemed to have narrowed. Quote, in September, during a 36-hour training session, including 2 legs and different speeds, there were very few gaps between Gitana, SVR Lazartigue, and Banque Populaire. They were side by side, unquote, says Jean Gregor? How do you say that?
Yeah.
Gregoire. And this guy's an expert and was quoted in the previous paragraph. Similar performances were seen at the end of September during the 24-hour old team, narrowly won by Banque Populaire 11, ahead of Gitana 17 and SVRL. So it looks like the competition in that class is, even though there's 5 boats, is still very close. And the boat they didn't mention in that paragraph, I'm not going to show you a picture of and then a video of, and we've been following this boat a little bit on and off. This is Thomas Coville and Thomas Rugel on Sodebo Ultime 3. That's that boat. And they are, by the experts, a little bit behind the trio aforementioned, but it's difficult to know where they will lie absent from the 24-hour Ultime. They did not sail in the 24-hour Ultime due to daggerboard damage. And according to another expert, Jacques, how do you say that? Guiader, who sailed on the multi-hull after its winter refit, the boat has made good progress.
Aha.
The mast has been extended. Look at this work that's been done. The mast has been extended by 2.5 meters with the sail area that goes with it. And the platform has been reduced by fully 500 kilos, particularly at the level of the foil well, so down low. Trimaran, which was losing ground in the transition phases, is taking off now faster in apparently just 12 knots of wind. So even what some people thought would be the 4th best boat is in the hunt. And we're going to show you a little teaser video because of this boat, because it's the best one I could find to show you something about what to expect in this race. Well, the L teams. Okay, so they're, as you all know, are starting in 2 days' time off Le Havre, and that is the L teams, the big boats. And in addition to that are the 50s and the 40s, which are the multi-hulls, but then the IMOCAs are the big fleet, and there are, I think, fully 90 of them. Let's see, I've got that note in here somewhere. This is the scene there this morning in Le Havre. Tip and Shaft, again, this is what I should have had on those previous slides because they provided some of these and certainly the information. This is unprecedented in the Transat Jacques Vabre. 40, not 90. I'm still back on that. On the Rolex Middle Sea Race. 40 IMOCAs, which is still unprecedented, will line up at the start on this Sunday, including 11 new generation boats built after the 2020 Vendée. What about the predictions? Well, all of the experts found this a tricky task as the, quote, level is that much higher, unquote, said Hubert Lamanier. Lamanier?
Yeah.
As for Antoine Mermaud, he declared, quote, considering the number of excellent projects, it will be a matter of reliability, how well prepared they are, and how close they are to getting 100% out of their boats. That will make all the difference. Now, who specifically are most of these experts rating? Well, the 5 pairs. Remember, these are double-handed boats. Jeremy Bayou, whom we've been following, and he now has Franck Camas joining him on Charal, winners of the Défi Azimut. Is that how you say it? Julie, I need French pronunciation lessons. And second in the Guiador Bermudas 1000 race are our choice for the top spot, according to Tip and Shaft. Quote, there are no weak points in the project, explained Nicholas Lundvin, who is not competing in the race, but who will be there for the solo return race, the Retour à la Base, on Wholesome PRB. Quote, the pair perform well and the boat has been fine-tuned, unquote. For Jacques Guiador, Jeremy Bayou can rely on the skills of Franck Camas, who always wants to go that bit further to advance projects and enhance performance. Advance and enhance, Julia.
Yes.
These guys are going to be tough. Now, they're on Charal, and thanks to one of our FOSI, I have a recent video of Charal crashing through the ocean to give you an idea what these boats will look like. As Stingray says, this boat, Charal, has to be the favorite unless they break.
They look like underwater bullets.
Well, they do.
Yeah.
In a David James commenting, in a double-handed race isn't getting 100% out of the boat the opposite of reliability. A good point. And of course, the whole trick is, that's a great vid, thanks Ted Ryman. The whole trick, of course, is to know when to dial back, because they can always go faster. They can always put on more, keep the boat powered up, and then they'll break the boat. By the way, that video, he didn't take it, I'm quite sure. Greg Phillips, though, sent me the link, for which I'm appreciative. Again, the FOSI helped put these shows together.
Absolutely.
And I can't tell you how much we appreciate.
Absolutely.
All of you sending links to things you think, and don't have your feelings hurt if I don't use them. It's usually not because the links and the topic or the media is not interesting. It's just lack of time. They look like the brute cousins of the AC-72, Stingray says. Yeah, indeed. Think about the pioneering Taberley, Eric Taberley and Hydropter big foiling many years ago. Fritz Mueller down in Miami.
Yes.
Good point. I'm impressed, Clark Chapin, but fear that all of these big, expensive, few holds barred boats, far from the boats that we mortals sail, are exciting to watch, but don't grow participation in the sport, much like I don't know 75-foot foiling monohulls. Yeah, but I think this purpose is a bit different, Clark. I think we're talking about boats that are interesting to watch the videos, by the way, the television. They have. I don't see that they're streaming the start Sunday on YouTube or Facebook. It's on Eurosport. It's on television, cable, and otherwise all around the world, different channels. So I think it's a little bit different deal, Clark, than just trying to get mere mortals like us excited in the sport that we already love. And Fritz Mueller pointing out that Charal in kind of lightish wind. Well, I think that was pretty good breeze. Pretty good breeze. Okay, well, we'll see how that all goes. Now, a couple pieces of breaking news. One was that the class, the IMOCA class, in the last day or so, had their big class meeting. And the proposal, one of the proposals, technical proposal, not for this race, obviously, but was to put a T-foil on the bottom of the rudders, like Sail GP,
Yeah.
like the America's Cup, which would help lift the boats, because right now they got twin rudders back there, which would help the boats foil, give them another foiling point in the back. That proposal was defeated by the class. They like the boats just the way they are, and they don't want to go through another arms war.
Oh yeah.
To get up to speed on that. Very interesting to watch. Clark agrees. Elements from the IMOCAs will trickle down, I bet, like hull shapes and sails. Probably, Chris, actually. Another piece of breaking news is that this gentleman whom we have been following, Charlie Dallon, you remember Julie from the Vendée, we followed him quite closely. We like his videos and his personality and so on. He has pulled out due to a health problem, undisclosed health problem, so he is not doing the TJV. And it was, everybody in the IMOCA class said this, the headline this morning, it was with great emotion that we have just learned that following a medical problem, this was this morning, Charlie Dallon suffered this week in Brittany. He will unfortunately be unable to take part in the 16th edition of the TJV. The duo on the IMOCA Massif, Santé, I don't know how to pronounce, Prévoyance, Charlie Dallon and Pascal Bidigary will nevertheless cross the line, the starting line, in agreement with their medical team in order to enable Charlie to continue, because they have to qualify for the Vendée Globe, they have to have X many starts in these other races that serve as qualifiers.
Yeah.
So the medical team is going to let them go out and cross the starting line, which helps them, but then they will, in the bigger picture, in the Vendée Globe quality system, but will be forced to retire once they cross the starting line. So a bit of news there. You were going to say?
Fritz says they need to have twin rudders in case they hit something.
Well, no, they're more efficient because the boat's heeled over. I think that's the primary reason for the twin rudders, because the boat is, the rudders are like this on the back end of the boat. So when they heel over this way, this rudder's now down almost vertical. A lot of boats, even monohulls, even offshore boats, are twin ruddered.
Yes.
You take a rating penalty and so on. But, it keeps, if you got a single rudder on the back end of a boat and the boat heels over, the rudder now is angling badly. So, look at the boat behind me. Can you see? Yeah, you can see the twin rudders, but of course they're on the big ama spread way apart. So that's the sad news about Charlie Dallon. But another one of our favorites has released some interesting videos as well, and we like to follow Pip Hare from the UK. Fixed priorities for proud Briton Pip Hare during upcoming Transat TJV. And she's apparently making good progress on her boat. She is, of course, a British entry, which, because of that, a lot of her videos, but I guess all of her videos are in English. And British solo skipper Pip Hare had a pretty solid 2022 season, her first with her new fully foiling recent generation Medallia, finishing 13th in the solo Vendée Arctique. Remember that? And race that was shortened, and 12th in the solo Route de Rome. And she also sailed, if I remember well, she sailed the Round Britain race and was first to finish in that, right? Pretty sure. We covered that here on the show. So she's having a pretty good go. She's got her, what do you call it? Her partner. The other person on the boat is Nick Bubb, another Brit. I looked him up today. And since 2022 and her earlier this year, she has completed a major refit of the VPLP Verdier design Medallia, which started life as the 2016-17 Vendée Globe winner, Banque Populaire. A remodeled, slightly more rounded bow, big new generation foils, and changes to the ballast system have significantly improved the all-around performance of the boat. But for that, Hare has paid something of a price in terms of her boat being out of action. Remember, we featured a video or two of her earlier, but it's been out of action until early summer. Problems in the heinous conditions at the start of the Fastnet race left her and co-skipper Nick Bubb trying to catch up with the body of the IMOCA fleet. So we'll be following them, and hopefully they have a good race as she lines up in Le Havre for what will be her third Transat TJV. Her focus, like almost all of her rivals, is primarily on finishing this race and the return, the Retour à la Base, which starts about 7 to 10 days after the finish into Martinique. Both races are essential qualifiers to make the 40-boat cut. Remember, we've talked about that for the next Vendée Globe. Hare is certainly older and wiser than when she started and finished the 2020-21 Vendée Globe, but no less effervescent, good-humored, and passionate, not least about being based in Britain. So we're going to follow them as well. Thanks to sailworld.com for that verbiage. And now here's a video that she released yesterday about the weather prep 3 days before the start.
2 days out from the start of the Transat Jacques Vabre, and I'm just having another look at the weather to try and get an idea of what the first 4 or 5 days of our race are going to look like. So I'll start off just trying to get an overview of the weather systems, how they're moving, how aggressive they are, and I just use a general viewer for that. So at the moment we're looking at today midday. You can see here there's a low pressure system off to the west of Ireland with a lot of wind. So the pink colours are a lot of wind underneath that. And if we fast forward to midday tomorrow, we should see that's slightly advancing towards us, and then midday on Sunday, that centre is staying relatively stationary, just dropping to the south a bit, but you can see there's quite a lot of breeze coming into the channel. So this is telling us that when we leave, it's going to be quite windy. And if we just zoom out a little bit, and then fast forward to Monday lunchtime, so that low pressure is dissipated, but look at this coming in behind it. And then Tuesday lunchtime, you can see there's a very aggressive little low forming here, an aggressive weather front here. We're going to be trying to track down underneath that there through to Wednesday. This is probably the biggest worry for everyone. So on Wednesday, we're starting to see another low pressure system developing quite far south, and that is looking like it's going to land somewhere near Finisterre. So immediately what that's telling us is that we need to try and get south as fast as we can, because we don't want to be hanging around here when this whole weather system comes in. Now, if we that's kind of big picture stuff. If we translate that now into actual actions for this boat and predictions of how well or what direction we need to go in this boat. So I use my navigation software for that. And what you can see here is I've got a base level forecast file on, and at the moment my navigation software is currently mapping out all of the possible routes that I could take from Sunday onwards. This pink line here, that was the routing that I ran yesterday. So this basically said that it's going to be about 11 days for me to get down to the rock of Sao Pedro, Sao Paulo, which is our turning mark south of the equator. So today I'm running the same calculation, and I'm going to compare the two routes to understand how they're different, why they're different, but also as the forecast progresses, we're getting more and more reliable information. And this is going to inform our race strategy for the first 2-3 days of the race.
You got to admire her.
I was going to say.
And everybody else on this race.
Right.
40 IMOCAs. Great stuff. We're going to follow Pip. We're going to follow the rest of the fleet as well, but she's obviously one of our favorites, not only because she's a woman, but because she's English language and she is effervescent and bright and all those things. I know Gordon Smith is a big fan. Very cool navigation tools, Ed Worley. Hey, did I say earlier, Ed, about that Andy, and I saw one of Ed's comments. I'm diverting here. Did I say that Andy and Gary
Yes.
were opposite each other in the 74? I meant the 77.
You did say 77, I think.
I thought I did, but whatever. See, they were on opposing boats, Australia and Courageous, in 77, not 74. Where were we? So this is a cool lady,
Yes.
very bright and very effervescent, and we're going to be cheering for her and hope she has
Indeed.
a good race. And we hope everybody has a safe race on this massive undertaking. Cool event, been going on for 30 years. This is the 16th edition. It's every other year, biennial. And you can see here on this graphic, there are the Class 40s, and their course is 4,600 nautical miles. The IMOCA sail 5,400, and then the bigger tries, the Ocean 50, sail 5,800 nautical miles. And then the big boys and girls on the teams sail fully 7,500 miles. Is that what that graphic is? 7,500 nautical miles out and around the Ascensions there. And they all, in theory, arrive in Martinique. Martinica, Nika, Nika. Remember that song?
Yes.
I've sailed in Martinique. Sunfish Worlds sometime, a long time ago. They all theoretically all arrive there about the same time on November, what? 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, sometime, something like that. We'll be following it. It starts this Sunday off Le Havre in France. That is our preview of the TJV. We hope you enjoyed that. It's, we've been, with the advice of John Sangmeister and a few others of you, saying we should be covering these races, and I think it was good advice.
Yes. No, and they're fun to watch.
There did. Okay, Ed Worley saying I did say 77. Thank you. I'm slowly aging. I hope I can still remember what year the Cup was sailed in which boats and by whom.
I'm amazed that you remember as much as you do.
Oh, you're too kind. In your beautiful taupe dress and pink. I should have had a pink ascot maybe to match your scarf today. Would that been the right thing?
No, you're just fine the way you are.
We can't skip over the America's Cup. There isn't much news. They're training, and these training videos are sent out, but there is a bit of news that has come vis-a-vis Jeddah. I'm sure Mr. Dalton has a strategy here, but this is from Stuff. There's articles appearing not quite daily down in New Zealand, but almost. America's Cup build-up round, that means the preliminary regatta in Jeddah, unaffected by the Gaza conflict, is the headline in stuff.co.nz. And it's a longer article than this, but they quote Mr. Dalton, America's Cup organizers see no reason to believe conflict in Gaza, conflict. This is not a war, this is a conflict. In Gaza could pose a security risk to the preliminary regatta due to be held in the Saudi Arabian port of Jeddah at the end of November. Mr. Dalton, who heads both the Cup Defender TNZ and the event company ACE, America's Cup Events, is in Jeddah. He was in Jeddah, maybe still is, but he was there Wednesday as the 6 teams look ahead to the second of their regattas in the smaller AC-40 boats. The port on the Red Sea, remember, it's in the Red Sea, just below the action up in Israel and the Gaza Strip, is 1,200 kilometers. Oh, it's 1,200 kilometers from the conflict between Israel and Hamas, in which more than 5,000 are reported dead in Gaza and 1,400 in southern Israel. Arg, Joe Holtzman says. Arg indeed. Now, notwithstanding, Julia, that in the meantime, last night, I went up to your apartment and I said, I hope I'm wrong, but it looks like World War III is breaking out.
Just begun.
When the U.S. sent F-15s and 16s into bomb, where was it? They were bombing in Syria.
Yeah.
Iranian proxies was what they call it. And they said, the U.S. said, this has a Defense Department spokesman, who I think I put as on the head of my Facebook page, on the cover photo of my Facebook page, this guy last night. But by the way, this bombing
has nothing to do.
Yeah, exactly. Has nothing to do with what's going on between Israel and Hamas. This thing is going to get out of control if it hasn't already. I hope not, but I think we're involved in a serious, not conflict, but war.
As I said last night, my biggest problem is I don't see any clear way to stop it.
And nobody sees any real clear way to stop it because I think this was all mapped out. Well, it was a chessboard, as I said on this show 2.5 weeks ago. The Iranians knew if Hamas attacked, it would get a response from Israel, which would justify a response from Iran against Israel and maybe all of the Arab countries in the Middle East. And that would drag who knows who else, the U.S., which we're already dragged in. We've mobilized 900 forces and 900 troops, apparently. We've got aircraft carriers, more than one, big groups of naval warships and power in the Middle East. And it goes on and on and on. And this thing is not going to happen. I doubt very much it's going to happen. That is this event in Jeddah. And I think Mr. Dalton must have a plan. He must have a plan for getting out of this thing. And it's got to be that I'm going to wait for Saudi Arabia and their insurance companies and others' insurance companies to say, hey, we're not going there. We're just not going to allow this to happen.
Or they could say, this is a good time to have a little good press, and so we're going to make sure that happens. And it's beautiful.
The teams won't go. Apparently, Alinghi and TNZ had shipped their boats. But even I'm starting to see one here. So I'm starting to see in a couple of press reports and from what people are saying, hey, we'll ship the boats, but if our security company says it's unsafe, we won't send the sailors. And that's I'm pretty sure what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You're just not going to risk this. I mean, you're not going to risk this, right? Tell me I'm wrong. Clark Chapin, 900 troops would make a significant parade in downtown Plymouth, Michigan, where he is, much less Washington, D.C. Yes, but still, it's the commitment of troops that is the worry. U.S. has sent 3 battle groups to the region, Ed Worley's saying. Yeah, it's David James, Sunfish Worlds in Martinique. Were you there, David? In Martinique in 1973? I know I was. TNZ owes them dollars, so how can they cancel Jeddah, Ed Worley is saying. Yeah, okay. There's some crouton up here, Julie. You can block that comment from Shimmy Mali. Okay, enough about the war and the America's Cup. I don't see how this is going to happen, Commodores, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm sure Mr. Dalton knows that, and I'm sure he's going to somehow call this off. He's got to go through the motions. He's got to try to keep Jeddah happy. He's thinking if he wins the Cup, maybe he runs the next one there, by all accounts. Just think, Julia.
Yes.
Just think how happy everybody would be if right now they were all training in New Zealand, half a world away from not one, but 2 wars.
Yes.
And all these problems. They were all beautifully ensconced in the gorgeous summer, spring, about to be summer weather in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. People would come, sponsors would be happy, looking forward to an America's Cup in a year's time in gorgeous Auckland, New Zealand.
Yes. Home
of the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, which is, they still call themselves home of the America's Cup.
I know.
Why they ever let Mr. Dalton get control of this thing, it's a violation of their trust, of their trusteeship. Unbelievable. Julie Ahrens says it's happening. I will see, Julie Ahrens. This is a sailing show, not a program on news. Leave it alone. No, Julie, it is a sailing show, and this is a major event in our sport. War is good business. World War is big business. That's why everyone wants to go to. I'm afraid you are right, Fritz Mueller. I've said that before on this show. So we'll see how it plays. What do you think? Is it going to? How many of you? Let's ask the Fozy, Julia, while we're on it. Mm-hmm. And to justify my comment just now that, this is a sailing show. How many of you think this event in Jeddah will happen in a month's time? Yeah, a month and a week? Yeah, just a little over a month. Who thinks? Yeah, Ed Worley, the U.S. State Department is drawing up plans, Ed Worley, as you well know, to get every American out of the Middle East, not just in Israel and not just in other, neighboring countries. Joe Holtzman says not. It is not going to happen. What do the rest of you say? Thierry de Jong, I know you say no to Jeddah. Do you think the event will happen? Ed Worley, I think it'll be canceled. Chris Exley, too unstable, won't happen. Sangmeister, not a chance. Happen with more than maybe 2 boats. Good question, Clark Chapin. Gordon Smith, I think Jeddah will happen because money talks. I don't know, Ted. It's the insurance companies are going to talk. Fritz Mueller says, no, it won't happen. Anybody else want to weigh in? So, Julie Aarons, there's my point, is that, it's this big impact. How would you like to be a member of one of these teams? How would you like to be going to an event in the Middle East? Saudi Arabia notwithstanding, could be any place in the Middle East at this point. This is, and Grant Dalton and others argue, well, they're going to run the World Cup qualifiers or something in Saudi Arabia the week after this sailing event. The World Cup qualifiers are not called the America's Cup. There are not countries that have proclaimed in their charter, like Hamas has, countries are terrorist groups, I mean, it's a terrorist group, have proclaimed death to Israel, death to America. And it's, excuse me, the insurance companies will have the final say. Exactly right, Graham Sweeney. The 2027 Cup will happen in Jeddah anyway, Alex Hayworth is saying. Maybe. Clark Chapin, the State Department is always, and this is true, always drawing up plans for, I don't know, the Vatican invading Andorra. It's just bad. What was another comment? It's just an OD AC40 race that matters to absolutely nothing, so why bother? Stingery, I think that's also spot on. David James, State Department has a level 3 travel advisory for Saudi Arabia. Reconsider travel to Saudi Arabia due to the threat of missile and drone attacks on civilian facilities. Thank you, David, for that. You think the insurance companies, Julia, are going to approve travel by a team called New York Yacht Club American Magic vying for the America's Cup preliminary regatta? Mm-hmm. Come on. I think our Fozy are smart and right. And I'm sure Mr. Dalton is trying to figure his way out of this at this point. The way that saves face, keeps the Saudis happy, maybe keeps some of the money in his banking, his checkbook for the Cup. Meanwhile, we are to the last leg and the promised video. I promised you at the top of the show, since this is Global Champagne Day, here's a video from British Columbia, I assume from Vancouver, but I'm not sure, but from a news website up there called Global News, on how, or maybe how not to, open a champagne bottle with a saber or a sword or a knife.
It's not about sharpness. Okay. So it's not about cutting the glass. It's just about hitting that point nice and firmly and following through. Okay. Okay?
Ready? Here
so
we
you go 1, 2.
I thought this was staged the first time I saw it. But I think not. I think it was.
Are you okay?
I think this makes for good TV.
That makes it okay. Well, now, do you want me to try this and try it again?
We're going to try this again.
Okay.
We're going to try not to get you completely soaked.
That's okay. I'll do it. Don't worry. So this one.
Now, okay.
Should we try it again?
We're going to dump this here.
Okay.
I cannot believe this.
That was funny.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
That's okay. Hey, you know what? It's live television. What can you do?
Well, sometimes this happens.
Okay.
I've never had that happen, ever.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you saved it for our show.
I know. Seriously. Okay. So hold this.
I'm looking for the seam. So there's the seam right there, right?
Yeah.
That the seam? Oh, right there. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So now just kind of give a couple of swift motions.
1.
Hold it on an angle. And unbelievable. Really
I don't know how many times I've seen this video.
We're going to change this segment into how not to saber.
They can't have done this on purpose.
That's actually what we're going to do.
If you go to, you know what? If you go to the Four Seasons, it'll be all good. Don't worry. It's great. Well,
that's unbelievable.
Well, the good news is I was about to send this into the cleaners anyway, so we're all set to go.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much, and Happy New Year as well, and Opa.
And Opa.
I don't know if that was a promotion for the Four Seasons Hotel in Vancouver or Victoria, but it's up in BC. That is the Global News, BC and Canada. Oh, Canada. A good way to end this show. We're an hour and 25 minutes in, and we'll do a few whiskey tango foxtrots and then call it a day, call it a weekend. Hope you're all having a good start down under to your weekend and a good Friday evening in Europe and across this continent and hemisphere. You're getting ready for it. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. When your girlfriend, got to start with a boating one. When your girlfriend leaves a breakup note on your boat, quote, "This isn't working." But you start up and it's working just fine. Greg Phillips, who's increasingly sending some stuff to us. Thank you for that, Greg. Nice. Here's the next one. Now, this is obviously a comment about my banjo playing and about us raising money here on Sailing Illustrated, Julia. But what we should obviously be doing is doing a really crappy job on it. Maybe we are, I don't know, a really crappy job and say, hey, we need more money to get better at this.
Oh, yes.
And we go take lessons on how to live stream. Ed Worley, you sent this to us. Need more money for lessons. And he gets lots and lots of money in his guitar case. Good commentary. Finally, this one. And only Ryman would send something like this. It's clean, though, Julia. It's clean.
Oh, yeah.
You have a right to a lawyer. This is the cop saying to whoever this crouton is he's pulled over. If you cannot afford one, you can always post your case on Facebook and wait for all the know-it-alls to offer advice.
Yes.
That sounds like our show, huh?
Yes,
Except we have real know-it-alls on here. We got smart people, don't we?
We do.
Julie Aarons, I don't like the idea of the cup sailing in Jeddah, but MBS. Yeah. MBS. Okay, Ed Worley, thank you for sending that in. Ted Ryman, thank you for sending that in. Have a champagne weekend. I hope you have champagne sailing conditions. We'll ask Andy Rose about his least favorite expression when we have him on the show next Friday, along with Gary Jobson. And that gets us to the finish line. Julia, your comment.
There are lots of opportunities to like, follow, and share.
Indeed, there are, and you can leave comments if you're watching this in replay. On demand, you can leave comments because we do leave the comments open, and we do go. You're looking at comments. That's your cue to say we do go back and read them. We do go read them even in replay.
Yes.
If you'll support us, we'd much appreciate it. Sailing Illustrated is viewer-supported media, and you can do so by going to Patreon, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. Jamie Hutcherson has joined us as a patron this week.
Yay!
I'm going to, Jamie, I hope, forgive me, I'm going to tell them the amount. It's $4.20. $4.20. You know what 420 is?
Mm-hmm.
That's the shorthand for pot for marijuana.
Yeah.
420. I thought that was very clever. Mm-hmm. You can give us 69 cents or $6.90. You'd like that, wouldn't you?
Sure.
Okay, well, we're being silly now. Thank you to all for the media, the video, the images, and the audio for today's show. Julia, final thoughts?
I was trying to, I just got a good joke handed to me for the difference between rugby and football, and I've forgotten it.
What, was there a comment on here?
No, Fritz Mueller says the rugby world finals is tomorrow.
Well, the World Cup finals is tomorrow, New Zealand and South Africa.
And South Africa, so it ought to be good.
Okay, well, that's interesting. That looks good. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Peter Stevenson. Peter's sending me some stuff, too. He's in Tasmania at the moment, not Sydney, where he's right next to the bridge in the Opera House. So that'll we'll see if we can run some of his stuff. Antarctic Museum in Tasmania, and wife going to the market shopping. Once again, a very thanks to Holtzman. Thanks to all of you. We appreciate your support and your comments and your contributions to the show.
Absolutely.
A reminder, Tuesday, we're going to have the esteemed executive director, newly installed but already esteemed executive director, Ashley Householder, joining us live via Skype from Newport, Rhode Island, from that sailing museum, the Sailing Museum, which also encompasses the National Sailing Hall of Fame in this country. That's on Tuesday. And then on Friday, we'll have Gary and Andy joining us. I will be in Newport Beach with them under the tent where the induction ceremony will take place on Saturday morning. We'll be doing that at our usual time, Friday afternoon, 1 p.m. Pacific, 8 o'clock UTC, 2000 UTC, and hope you can join us for both those shows next week. Julia?
Yes. Happy Halloween.
Halloween is Tuesday.
Yeah.
But most, at least families, I know a lot of kiddies will be celebrating it tomorrow night, Saturday night normally. So this picture came from Graham Sweeney.
Oh, amazing.
And he's got quite a story, which I'll run on Tuesday, about how this whole Halloween thing and the pumpkins maybe came from Scotland. I have an article that's quite interesting. So, Graham, thank you for that. We'll run that on Tuesday. Hope to see you all then. Hope you have a great rest of your week and weekend. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.